And it's easy to dream of building an Amazon competitor because that's really sexy and that's that seems like a lot of money and everything else. But really, what drove marketplace success is local commerce. And on the surface of it, it doesn't look that sexy. It's like, it's just people selling to each other like locally. But that was Facebook's secret sauce because that was the core of how those group communities worked.
The New Zealand Business Podcast, brought to you by Guerrilla Technology, your strategic and proactive IT partner.
Greetings, I'm your host Paul Spain, futurist and chief executive at Guerrilla Technology. I love seeing individuals and their organisations thrive. The New Zealand Business Podcast is all about this, through sharing the business, leadership and innovation learnings of our most incredible people to educate and inspire each of us so we can do better in New Zealand and on the global stage. In this episode, I'm speaking with Bowen, an advisor and investor for companies across New Zealand, Australia and the US. Whilst Bowen is perhaps most well known for founding Facebook's marketplace features, one of the world's most popular e-commerce platforms, Bowen's journey actually began in Dalian, China, and he walks us through his early experience in New Zealand, where his family started over, building a new life from scratch. Bowen shares insights and hard-won lessons about building products at New Zealand tech giant TradeMe before heading to Silicon Valley and landing at Facebook, where he created Facebook Marketplace, a platform that now reaches over 1 billion monthly users. He takes us behind the scenes of what it took to pitch bold ideas, assemble teams, and navigate the very real challenges of scaling products for a global audience. He also dives into his experiences at Stripe and Common Room, offering practical lessons on everything from pivoting a software as a service business to understanding what drives successful tech exports. And finally, he shares why he and his family decided to return to New Zealand, convinced of the incredible potential and future of our local tech and innovation ecosystems. The New Zealand Business Podcast is brought to you by One New Zealand and Guerrilla Technology. Before we jump into the interview, a quick question. How confident are you in your business's cybersecurity? A cyber attack costs a typical New Zealand small to medium business over $180,000, and I certainly don't want that to happen to you. So I'm offering New Zealand Business Podcast listeners a free cyber risk reduction review call valued at $250. You'll get a personalised action plan to lower your cyber risk. Seriously high value, no strings attached. If you're interested, tap the link in the show notes or on the episode page to reserve your session. Bowen Pan, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here in the studio.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Now, I always like to sort of start at the beginning. So tell us a little bit about, where you were born and what the first years of your life kind of looked like.
Yeah. So I was born in Dalian, China, which is a coastal city in northern China. And I lived there for the first 9 years of my life. So did 2 years of primary school. And then my parents decided to immigrate to New Zealand in the mid-90s.
Yeah, okay.
And at the time, I think we were one of the first wave of skilled migrants who moved to New Zealand on the basis of essentially like a merit point system of if you meet the different requirements that the Immigration New Zealand has set in terms of the degrees you have and your language proficiency, etc. And so my parents applied and passed the interviews and
fantastic,
and just got a permanent residency and came over.
Yeah. So at that stage, did you speak English as a family or?
I didn't speak a word of English. I didn't even know the alphabet.
Wow.
My parents could speak English.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have passed the interview. But no, so it was a very new environment for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was kind of a pretty typical immigrant experience where we moved over. We didn't have a lot of money. The three of us shared kind of one small room. That's how we started. Yeah. And there was one single bed. and so we shared, we rotated around who could sleep on that bed depending on like what was on the next day.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely quite eye-opening for me as a 9-year-old coming to see, oh wow, like all the all the things that my parents has to go through, right, to really pave the way and make them something of themselves. One of the stories I remember was during, I think we moved in like towards the end of the year, so it was getting close to the holidays, and so someone had told my mom that it's illegal to leave a 9-year-old at home by themselves, and she's like, oh, I guess I have to take them around, and my parents were looking for jobs then, so my parents would go around like door knocking just to hand in a resume to say, hey, like, you know, and the New Zealand economy wasn't doing so well then, kind of the mid-90s, and I remembered asking later, I was like, hey, you know, like, why couldn't we just take the bus? Like, why do we like walk so far? And it turned out that the money that they were saving for the bus was going to be like later on used as like lunch money for me, like that day, because he wanted to like make that outing a bit more fun for me. So yeah, so that was a start, like of how my family started here, for sure. And they gave up really respectable jobs. My dad was a senior engineer working on those big ships, on the container ships. My mom was an associate professor at the university, and you know, when they came over, they had to throw that away, start from scratch. Mom waited tables as her first job here. Dad worked in a furniture factory to start, and worked their way up. And now they're very happily retired, like built their own house, and you know, like and Mom ended up working at the University of Auckland for over 3 decades.
Fantastic.
But yeah, the beginning was not easy.
And what was the early drive for the family to come to New Zealand?
I think a lot of it was trying to create a better future for their kid, i.e. me, at the time. And it wasn't like the future felt bleak per se. I think China at the time, mid-90s, was just in the very early stages of beginning to kind of embark on its capitalism like experiment that eventually became what it is today. Yeah. But I think I remember Mom saw me when I started primary school in China. I think back then you started primary school when you were 7. So it's like 2 years later than what's here. But I think after 6 months attending a primary school, I had already like had these like really worn skin on my hands just from the amount of writing I had to do for like a 7-year-old. And she's like, oh man, it's not gonna get any easier. Like, kind of really want Bowen to have a more holistic and one where, you know, it didn't feel like you had to compete every single step of the way. Yeah. And so I think that was a really big driver. And which is really amazing and really admirable, because to throw away everything, you know, like everything you own, like the house and a career and everything, to do that in your mid-30s is really, really admirable. Yeah. I'm not even sure if I could do it. Like it's really amazing. So I do think back whenever there are difficult moments and hard things, I just remind myself that, hey, it's not so bad. Yeah. And my grandparents before them, even tougher. You know, they had to go through World War II. Yeah, and that's even harder, right? Yeah, that's like not getting bombed. Yeah. It's a different level of survival. So yeah, it's we have it pretty good. And then when I got to uni, it was really being introduced to this group called Velocity, which you may have heard of, from University of Auckland. Yeah. It was called Spark back then, but they had to change the name because of the telco. But that was a really, really amazing like group of folks who, I think that was the first time I was exposed to essentially uncapped ambition. Yeah. Where there were just these people who are students who used to study at University of Auckland who then went on to found companies. You know, like I remember Fatty was like a few years before me, who then founded Power by Proxy. Priv Bradu, who was the inaugural CEO of Velocity, who then went on to Harvard Business School and ended up founding Blue Oak, which was one of the early pioneers of like e-waste recycling. And so seeing these people just completely opened up my world of saying, wow, like there's all this possibility out there, that you didn't have to just get good grades and then go and work at a graduate role at like a bank. which is, I'm not dinging that. That's fine. That's totally a legitimate career. But that's not the only choice.
Yeah.
There's a lot more choices in the world that's possible. And found a lot of really great mentors. So you may have heard names like Jeff Witcher. He's a mentor to a lot of young folks, including myself. And even to this day, we're still very close.
Yeah, that's great. And so what was your first real entrepreneurial endeavor? Was that something that you did while you were studying, or was that post study?
Yeah, so I founded my first startup at the end of my first year at university, and it was a venture called UniFriend. As the name suggests, it's a social networking site for university students.
What year was this?
That was in 2005.
Wow.
It was very early, very early. We didn't know what Facebook was. I think Facebook may have been founded or very early in a few Ivy League universities. And the idea of, I think at the time there was this whole wave of kind of niche social networks where you focus on particular networks. So like our one was like, oh, cool, like you just get a university email address to validate, and then that will university-specific networks. And so that gained some level of traction, and I decided to essentially take a 1-year leave from school where I reduced my workload to, I think, only like 1 or 2 papers for the whole year. And because I don't think at the time University of Auckland has an official policy of allowing to pause your degree, but I was able to essentially promise university. My final year, I did a conjoint degree. So in my final year, I actually did double the course load in the end to finish it within the same. But I took 1 year leave to see like, okay, let me really give this a crack. And at my first year, when I founded UniFriend, we ended up being runners-up for Velocity, and that kind of opened up a whole different set of opportunities around mentors, and that was when I was first introduced to the Ice House. And I remember Andy Hamilton was the CEO then of the entrepreneurial ecosystem here. And that was a really great my first kind of lesson in how to build a company, how to build products, or how not to build a product. And did all kinds of scrappy things because obviously like there was very little funding. So we had to develop our website. So how do I convince engineering students to work on it? And then I realized that the engineering school at Auckland had a practical work hours requirement where you had to work something like over 200 hours in order to graduate. And I remember at the time that a lot of my classmates were having trouble finding internships.
Oh, that's convenient.
In software engineering. I was like, well, what a waste. You shouldn't be working at a petrol station. Why don't you just come to UniFriend? I'll sign off your work reports. And I checked with the professors. They're like, yeah, that seems legit. It's a real company. So that's how. So we had a ragtag team of engineering students just come in and out every semester, and that's how we built the thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really fun. But thanks to Facebook, I had to go back and graduate because obviously didn't reach a level of success after Facebook entered New Zealand, but we learned a lot of really, really great stuff there.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Those sort of early things that you get involved in, you certainly learn a few lessons. I launched a social network at a similar sort of window, 2003.
Cool. Yeah.
Maybe we launched, but it was focused on a different audience. It was worlddj.com. So
okay,
whole nother
all DJs in the world.
Yeah.
Now they're just in Facebook groups.
Everything moved to Facebook.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. So after you graduated, what did you decide to do?
So I graduated in 2008, which is not the best time to graduate, and I think. So in the end, the only interesting role I could take was the offer that I got from my internship, which was at Deloitte, and so I did just over a year there, and it was actually pretty interesting because it gave me a view of what corporations are like, what government entities are like, and how change happens. I remember at the time one of the projects that I worked on was Auckland Council. I don't even remember who the mayor was back then, but the project there was the Auckland Council trying to figure out how to make citizens like us more. like
Wow.
like an NPS, like how do we increase NPS with Auckland citizens?
The Net Promoter Score.
Yeah. Like not quite put that way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like, right?
yeah.
And then I remember like digging in, like, okay, well, one of the obvious pieces is like, well, it's how they interact with you, right? Like these key interaction points where you actually think about the council, because normally you don't think about the council, right?
Sure.
And it's well, like customer service is an obvious one. Like it's when you interact. And so I remember going in and like digging in, and I found this one customer interaction where this one customer called the council like 13 times. But every time they called in, the council thought he was a different person. And
All started from scratch every time.
and he was complaining that his rubbish was not being picked up.
Oh, okay.
And you can just see like there was like a misspelling for every single one. Like an address was spelled wrong, like a date of birth was wrong. And I remember presenting that to say like, yeah, you want to know like why people like don't like you that much right now? Like this is the example. And so it gave me a real appreciation of like scaled tech systems and more crucially how much it really impacts people day to day. And so spent a year there. And then after that, decided to fulfill my dreams of working at a tech company. And in New Zealand, the dream then, there was only one company, and that was TradeMe. There was no other scale company at the time. And that was really, really interesting. So I think that gave me a really good grounding in an intuition in marketplaces, in how consumer products work. And I had just enough scale, even though New Zealand was small, but just enough scale. And TradeMe had over 80% of domestic traffic in New Zealand at the time. And enough kind of, it wasn't a public company, so I had a lot of freedom to try things and do stuff. And also help them to launch a few new businesses as well. So back then it was the deals, the daily deals craze.
Deals, yeah.
Yeah, so we launched one for TradeMe as well that eventually got spun off. And yeah, so I really enjoyed my time there. And I left a few months after they refloated on the stock exchange.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So when you look back at that time, I'm sure there were some really good learnings and some lessons that you kind of took with you. Maybe first of all to the point of, you know, working inside a tech company that had been acquired. Obviously, acquisitions sometimes go, you know, really, really wrong, and sometimes they actually work out quite well. What were the lessons that you picked up from that perspective in terms of, you know, Fairfax's approach of helped TradeMe, you know, go forwards rather than backwards?
I think Fairfax literally just left TradeMe alone.
Yeah, okay.
Like they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Which is better than effing up the acquisition. Because that happens quite a bit, right?
Yes,
But also, you know, could there have been other synergies in terms of what they could have leveraged to build a bigger business because it was now owned by Fairfax? That wasn't quite like realized either.
Yeah.
Like I think you can argue that maybe it had a bit more capital, but like TradeMe was never needed more capital. It was actually highly profitable, right? So Fairfax never really leveraged the TradeMe platform to try to enter the classifieds market in Australia itself when that was nascent. So as a result, like REN Domain like owns the real estate portals. You have AutoTrader that owns the cars. So you never really have an equivalent of TradeMe in Australia. So you can argue that was a missed opportunity.
Right, because eBay had sort of succeeded to some degree in the Australian market, but they didn't have the breadth of offerings.
Only in the general goods area, but they didn't really have classifieds.
Yeah.
And classifieds is where the money is. Which TradeMe later realized after Facebook Marketplace was launched, in that became a very unattractive, essentially a declining business. But really the high margin is the three verticals, right? You have the cars, the real estate, and the jobs verticals, and that's always been true for newspapers. Those used to be called three rivers of gold for newspapers, and it's never changed. And so I think they didn't quite capitalize on that either, but hey, at least he got a return on the investment, and it wasn't value destructive. Yeah.
Any other big lessons that you walked away with?
I think I really enjoyed like how much latitude and autonomy that was given to like a relatively inexperienced, essentially 1 year out of school, to go in and to propose some really bold ideas and big things to try, and also tolerance for failure. I remember I worked on this massive pricing change for TradeMe that was a really big deal back then. And I had spent like a month or two modeling every possibility out with all the different elasticity of like where the pricing might be with these changes. And we rolled it out, and it was a huge failure.
Oh, wow.
It was a massive failure. Like, it did not work at all. That was, I mean, I was mortified, obviously, as a new grad, but that did not hurt my career at all. In fact, everyone's just like, well, we learned some stuff. Let's keep going. All right, let's make sure we don't make the same mistake again. But there was no kind of stopping or slowing down of the intensity of which we moved.
Walk us through what that looked like to come to the conclusion that this was the wrong decision and then to roll it back. How quickly did all of that happen, and were you kept plugged in right through that whole process?
Yeah. So, and also like there was a lot of qualitative feedback that I remember that I was looking at, but I think we rolled it back after like a couple of months.
Yeah.
And it's after the initial, oh yeah, it's just a spike, then what will people actually do, and observe what they actually do, and then you look at the numbers and you compare that to the models of what you think might have happened. Yeah, just never recovered. And the tough thing was these pricing things for consumer products is that it's really hard to A/B test. Like once the price is out, it's out. You can't like charge someone a different price from. It's very hard to keep a secret. And so I was monitoring it daily and feeding a report back, and eventually just made a recommendation, say actually we should reverse what I recommended.
That came from your guidance and recommendation.
Yes, yeah, because it was clear that it was that it just wasn't. It was clear that there was a net revenue loss, and customers were not happy. Like, it's like the worst of both worlds. You actually not ended up achieving any of the goals that you were trying to do. And so that was a big learning.
Yeah. And then you moved on from TradeMe. Were there any other things that really sort of stood out within TradeMe? You launched, was it TreatMe?
Yeah, TreatMe was a daily deal site. That was fun. It was the daily deal sites were really just a sales business in disguise as a tech business.
Yeah.
It's really just using email lists. But it was fun to work and talk to so many local businesses. I think that was probably my first intro to SMEs, and really I think I closed the first 30 deals personally. So I was literally driving up to like massage spas and golf courses and like trying to work out the deals with them and getting assigned, and then we hired real salespeople after that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it gave me an appreciation for just what the SMEs cared about, like how hard it is for their margins, and then subsequently like building out the deals business was really interesting, because that was also my first time working with a scaled sales team.
Yep.
That was also new to me, which has proved to be like quite useful later.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yeah, the launch of that business was pretty fun. We launched, I remember, with like a $1 burger fuel deal as a way to like acquire customers onto the TreatMe platform.
What was it? A $1
burger fuel?
Burger fuel.
Burger fuel. Yeah, it was a good deal. Yeah. And I think we put aside something like I can't remember the exact amount, like maybe tens of thousands of dollars for the launch day to subsidize the deals. And it was launched, and we had a live counter on the number of vouchers being bought, and it was just moving like that the whole time.
Real fast.
Yeah.
And did you have a limit on how many you were selling?
Oh yeah. We sold out after a few hours. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, you can like put your email in next time so you don't miss out. And so that was pretty effective in acquiring lots of customers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What happened from there?
Yeah. So after I finished up at TradeMe, I looked around and really felt like, unlike now, there really wasn't much in the tech scene for New Zealand, right? Like, this is, like, as we just talked about before, like very early Zero, pre-Rocket Lab, and otherwise like not that many software business. I think like Orion Health and like Datacom, like it was those kind of companies, but no real kind of global venture scale businesses, and no venture capital industry either. And so it's always been a dream of mine to work in Silicon Valley. I used to always like read TechCrunch even back then on what's happening, and I really wanted to give it a crack because of all the examples that were set before me by all the folks that I met at Auckland Uni. And so I decided to say, well, like, what's the easiest way to go? So my first path is I applied to various roles. And obviously they're like, who is this random Kiwi? Like, I've never heard of Trade Me. Like, and so that didn't work. And the second path was, well, maybe I could like try to go through via school. Like, that would give me a visa, and that's what I did. So I was very fortunate. Mentors like Jeff, who introduced me to other people and other people at the school who talked with me. I remember there was a lady, Melinda Lehman, who worked at Stanford. I think she was either in the development office or the admissions office. And she loves New Zealand. She just happens to love New Zealand. And she has like, her kids like went to university here, and she was visiting Wellington at the time. And I remember meeting her at a cafe, and she looked at my profile and she said, you know, I think Stanford GSP would love your profile, actually. And I was like, really? Like, I never thought about this seems such a big thing such a big leap, right? And so that gave me some confidence, and I really decided to give it a crack. And so in the end, ended up at Stanford doing the MBA program. Yep. And that was my way to land in Silicon Valley. And a related story to that is that when that happened, I met my wife Maya a few months before I moved over to the US. And so I had to try every conceivable way to get her over, try to convince her. So in the end, I convinced her to quit her job from Russell Mack, because she had talked to me about how unhappy she was as a lawyer, and got her to crash in my dorm and for a year. Oh, wow. Which was technically not allowed. And she ended up saying, oh, like, maybe I should give this a try. And then she applied, and she ended up also getting into the law program. And so we ended up graduating together. Wow. Which was great. Great. Yeah. And graduating there then give you like an additional 18-month, essentially like a grace period to work while you apply for the work visa in the US. Yep. And then so I ended up at Facebook.
And so, walk us through your journey at Facebook, because, I think there's probably a fair bit packed in there. And tell us about how you pitched the idea for Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah. So my time at Facebook is divided up into roughly like 3 episodes. So there's the first 4 years. So I was there for 6.5 years. The first 4 years was Marketplace, so we can talk about that. And then the second episode was a relatively more unknown, but actually a pretty interesting piece, which is short form videos. So that's a whole story about TikTok, and launching the first version of Facebook short form video experience that eventually got rolled up into Reels, Facebook and Instagram Reels. And then the last part of my experience there was building out the live gaming experience, building out live streaming, and like a Twitch competitor where people watch other people play games. Sounds strange for folks who are not in the space, but it is a very popular kind of entertainment category. Yes, but so that's how I spent my 6.5 years. The first 4 years, Marketplace was the most formative, and it was just a really special time at Facebook. I would say it was a time when the level of reach that the company has, but to the number of employees it had, was unprecedented. I think for every one engineer at the time, there were something like 2 million users or something. Wow. Like, the ratio was crazy. Yeah. And they were growing so fast that I remember that when I signed my contract with them to when I started, which was about a semester, they had doubled in size. What? Like, in that time, it was just nuts. Crazy. Like, it was just growing like crazy. And even after doubling in size, when I went to their campus, like, the campus was half full. Yeah. Like I'm not sure if you've ever been to the Facebook campus.
I think I have, actually.
Okay. Yeah. It looks like Disneyland because it's designed by Disney. Yeah. So it's a very fantastical. And now they have like massive buildings everywhere, but like the original buildings, it used to be the Sun Microsystem campus. Okay. So they bought that off, but. Anyway, even that was half full. So they were reasonably early stage, but they had massive scale already. And I think in my first week, they had just hit 1 billion users. and they were terrified of like losing the culture of moving fast and learning quickly, and so they produced this really famous little red book. It's like a little cultural book that really tried to instill like how Facebook should be operating and how important it was that like everyone stays humble, that no one uses Facebook because it's Facebook. People use Facebook because of their friends and other people is on there, and all these kind of like cultural values. So that was the first part. Is Facebook was like in a really interesting time. And I would say one of like the real golden times of the company. I had a very strong personal interest in commerce, social networking sites, probably because of UniFriend and TradeMe, and just through me trying to find every nook and crevice of where could there be a spark of something, because like surely there's something when there's a billion people on a platform. And that's when I came across, a piece, like a little nugget of research that suggested that 1/3 of people in Indonesia, which is where these researchers went for that particular report, was treated Facebook as their primary e-commerce site.
So this was an internal Facebook report?
This is a research report. Yeah. So Facebook do these research reports all the time. It was for the report was for something completely unrelated, but this is one of the random surprising things that they like filed away in the appendix. And that kind of sparked just a curiosity of like where could that be happening? Like that seems pretty anomalous, and so decided to just use my time during onboarding to really do some research, and very quickly honed in on Facebook groups. And Facebook groups was the only place where people could buy and sell stuff that was not like your friends. And so did that, ran a few queries, realized that, oh my God, there were tens of millions of people, but fragmented across hundreds of thousands of groups that people were just organically creating. But there's definitely a way to think about how do you aggregate all this together and really create a centralized marketplace. And so that was a start.
Did you think there was an openness to some sort of marketplace, e-commerce type of platform within Facebook at that point?
Not at the leadership level, no. The leadership level was very, very focused on killing Snapchat. That was like the era then. Like it was like, oh, Facebook is going to get killed by Snapchat. All the teens are abandoning Facebook. Kind of, I guess, similar themes to now. And I think, because of that kind of singular focus, like there wasn't really much headroom for that. But there were a few more senior people at the company who had personal interest in this. Yeah. So one of them is this lady called Deb Liu, who used to ran the homepage of eBay. Like that was her job. So It's a pretty big job.
Yeah.
And then she actually like took almost externally be viewed as a demotion of working as a product marketing manager at Facebook. And because and she joined a few years earlier, Facebook was like growing really quickly. But she had a dream of building out a marketplace. But it was really hard to find the angle, right? Like she had tried to do it through pages where you can allow a page to sell stuff. That kind of like logical, right? But really hard to get scale. Like how do you just get millions of merchants who suddenly would just upload everything? And even if they do, like how is that better than Amazon? Or maybe e-commerce ads, and you can make the ads buyable, maybe. But then that's like super fragmented. It's just like feed ads. It's not really an e-commerce experience. So I knew that she would be probably interested, and so I ended up pitching this idea to her. And it turned out that she actually had some thoughts around some of this stuff, but it never really all came together. And so I said, oh, cool. Like I have to work on this. Like just this is really rare. It's really rare to have tens of millions of people who are organically doing something, and you can really leverage the supply and demand to build a centralized marketplace. It just doesn't happen very often because marketplaces are very hard to build.
Yes, yeah.
And she's like, oh, there's like no headcount. Like there's no, like, doesn't matter. Like it's just this is really, really special. Just give me whatever, weeks, month, like, and just see if we can figure something out. And then I think, she probably looked at me like some kind of crazy person. And then she said, oh, you should meet this other person. And Vijay is a really, really special engineering leader. He's actually now the CTO of OpenAI.
CTO
Of OpenAI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
no big deal. But Vijay was one of Deb's engineering partners. There's a whole other side story where Deb and Vijay actually built a separate, really important business for Facebook, which was the mobile app ads. Some would argue that was the ad product that saved Facebook, because before those ads, the general consensus is that Facebook cannot make money from mobile, and that was the first $1 billion ad product.
Wow.
Already. So they had some respect in the company. And anyway, so I met Vijay, and then he's like, oh man, like we really connected. I think what was like a 15-minute chat turned into a 45-minute, an hour conversation. And Vijay became my first volunteer to essentially code out and build out a prototype, initially in groups. And then we recruited other volunteers who used their weekends and evenings. And so we built the prototype. One of the folks to be able to present this to Zuck, because Zuck at the time would review like top 10 demos, and Zuck saw it's like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. Like when we're shipping it.
Wow.
Yeah, we're like, oh, we don't have a team. And so we pulled forward some headcount from next year. And it was like very small teams, like 3 or 4 people, and that formed the core engineering team. And I was the first product person to then form that, to then build out the first version, which was essentially detecting whether you're buying and selling something in a group, and then turning that group into a for sale group. And that was a building block of a marketplace, which then later on, I think it was about just over a year later, then led the launch of the marketplace tab itself. And we launched it to all English-speaking countries, to about 350 million monthly active users. And
Wow.
And then scaled it later to other verticals like cars and rentals. And when I left Marketplace, it was at about 850 million monthly actives. And then I think now it's got about a billion monthly actives, which is, so surreal. It's still surreal. It's surreal even for me, because those numbers are, even for Facebook, they are big numbers. To fast forward that, to see this just become a thing that people just, of course you buy and sell on Marketplace if for certain stuff, is very satisfying.
Yeah.
And there were many pivots. I remember, after the launch of Marketplace, I wrote some, there were historians at Facebook, by the way. I didn't know this until towards my end of my tenure, where they were documenting what was happening in its corporate history. And so they were using all these internal blogs that I wrote on how did Marketplace come to be, which was really fun.
Wow.
But I remember having this diagram of showing all the different screenshots of how Marketplace evolved and how it came to be. There was a lot of nuance in building it out. There was a nuance around, okay, how do you bootstrap supply? How do you get enough listings? Clearly, there were enough listings in the groups, but the groups were private. They're mostly private groups. And the group admins did not view these group surfaces to be Facebook's property. They viewed it as their own space. So how do you an experience that doesn't destroy the privacy and the ownership of these group admins, but also allow this supply to be pooled into this public space? How do you think about ratings and reviews when it's attached to your real profile? Do you allow people to, if they post something on Marketplace, should their friends see it? And it turned out the answer was no, because a lot of people feel judged.
Yeah.
And actually, there's all kinds of really interesting social dynamics where if you are a parent, often there's this weird shame attached to buying used baby items, even though it's completely normal. But it's kind of a weird, I'm getting my kid not the best thing. So there's a lot of social stuff to figure out. And then on the demand side, how do you direct people to this marketplace as opposed to groups to bootstrap this experience? And then the behavior of how people bought was also very novel, because before Facebook Marketplace, the consensus of how e-commerce works is through search. 90% plus of all transactions on eBay and Amazon is through a search, right? But on Marketplace, it's completely flipped. It's 90% browse and 10% search, because that's just what people do on Facebook, right?
Right. Is that because you're showing products that are local to them, or you have enough data about them to know what things they might be interested in? Or?
I think eventually we could do, we did that. But initially, people just went to Marketplace because they ran out of stuff on newsfeed. Right, it's a very different behavior. And you are probably just on the train for like 10 minutes and you're just killing some time, just like looking at that. So it needs time to cultivate. So over time, there were then people ended up searching over time, but that took years. But initially, how do you design an experience that just completely feels different from every other e-commerce experience that like you would know of, which is people browsing for local things for sale, for entertainment. Like it's just a very different experience.
Wow.
But there were also lots of other things of like, we had a small team, and I think it was like the fourth pivot or something. We didn't have, I think we were like running out of time in terms of the deadline that was set. And we had to move fast, and we couldn't afford building the experience out on iOS and Android natively. This just takes too long, it requires too many people. And so we threw a Hail Mary and we said, let's try this experimental technology called React Native. And React Native team at Facebook at the time they were in like the crevices of like Facebook settings and stuff. It was like very small.
Yeah.
And so we talked to the team and we're like, hey, this is your time to shine. Do you want to be exposed to 350 million people? And so I think overnight they doubled their team.
Wow.
And we worked hand in hand with them. And so React Native was basically plucked out of obscurity. And Facebook Marketplace became the first true scaled React Native product. And that's how we built like the initial launch version of Marketplace in 10 weeks. And it was largely because of React Native.
Wow.
Yeah. So there were lots of stories there.
We probably could sort of delve in
Yeah.
a lot more. We definitely want to cover some other stuff.
Yes.
What would you say would be the kind of the biggest challenge that you had to deal with during that journey?
I think the biggest challenge is, there were definitely different challenges, but I think in terms of starting Marketplace itself, it was really to sell the dream and reframe Marketplace in a way that is unique to Facebook and make it and create the right for this product to exist in the minds of the consumers, as opposed to fitting that into the dreams of like what different execs might want. I think that's often a very common tension in large like corporate when you try to build corporate venture.
Yeah.
And that was, that was not easy. And it's easy for folks to dream of building an Amazon competitor because that's really sexy and that's that seems like a lot of money and everything else. But really, like what drove Marketplace success is local commerce. Like, and on the surface of it doesn't look that sexy. It's like, it's just people selling to each other like locally. Like, but that was Facebook's secret sauce because that was the core of how those group communities worked. And it's also gave Facebook some core advantages in terms of where local trust and safety matters a lot more. Therefore, Facebook's real identity profile actually had a real unfair advantage, right? And local also gave us unusual level of entertainment that you can see just stuff what people are selling around you, which is really interesting. And you can even change your location to see what different areas are selling.
Okay.
Yeah. So uniquely fit Facebook.
Yeah.
And then painting out a vision of how that can become such an instrumental product for Facebook beyond just local item selling with like other verticals and stuff. I think that was probably the hardest thing that definitely took longer than what I naively originally thought, but ultimately we got there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so much packed in. We could probably go a lot deeper there, but keen to hear a little bit more about, what else you did before you came back to New Zealand. You had a period as head of product at Stripe.
Yeah.
And also after that you were at Common Room. So maybe you can tell us a little bit.
So afterwards, after Facebook, I went to Stripe, which is a fintech company that does payments. And I went there because I wanted to really see and test myself on how much of the skills I learned at Facebook is actually like real product leadership and not just me getting good at like how to do Facebook stuff. And it's like as different as you can get because it's a fintech company and I was working in developer experiences. So I did just under 2 years here and it was fun. But also it was a good grounding in like payments. But I also felt like 2 years in payments was good for me.
That was enough.
Yeah, it was good. And then I really wanted to build out and experience B2B SaaS. Like that was the one piece of the puzzle that I just did not have like really solid experience in. And so that's where I went to Common Room. And Common Room is a B2B SaaS platform for sales and marketing, specifically helping you to build pipeline for sales teams and account-based marketing for marketing teams. And there was a really fun time. Like I can't say like good enough things about the folks at Common Room. If I was in the US, I would have been there for a very long time. But the time I was there was quite a pivotal time for the company, because when I joined the company, that wasn't what Common Room was doing. Common Room was a community management platform.
Wow.
For social media managers and community managers.
Yeah.
But it had like the core pieces of technology that was very useful for go-to-market. So I went in and I worked with founders to essentially execute a complete pivot of the company, and essentially gave out the company had about $1 million ARR US in community management, which we basically completely gave up.
So you destroyed your existing revenue.
Yeah, we didn't completely destroy it per se, but we basically like had to pivot the entire company away from it. Now it's a very small proportion of the total revenue, and built that out to be essentially like an AI, the poster child for AI go-to-market startups. And now Common Room serves about 60% plus of Cloud 100 companies, and a lot of the AI companies you might know as well. So companies like Atlassian, Notion, Zapier, their sales team all use Common Room to build their pipeline, which was really fun because that gave me also a grounding in building out go-to-market.
That's great.
And then after that, my wife and I had always planned to come back to New Zealand. We actually decided that we probably want to seriously think about New Zealand with the birth of our first kid in 2020. And we started really looking. And so we initially did that by getting involved with a few of the early VC funds that were just starting in 2020 in New Zealand. And over that time, we just really started getting increasing conviction that the startup ecosystem is real in New Zealand now. And there's a real thing, a really amazing, fantastic thing happening here that's really, really encouraging. And there are also some companies that are, I think, the best you'll find anywhere in the world, with a level of ambition that matches any company in Silicon Valley. I think we need more of them, but the fact that there are a few that meets that bar is really, really amazing. And that ecosystem that we had talked about during my time at Velocity in undergrad is starting to become true, which is just really amazing. Yeah. And I'm of the firm belief that the growth for the New Zealand economy is highly dependent on the success of our tech sector, because it is one of those sectors that has uncapped growth. Like nearly every single other part of the economy, which are all very important, but there are some kind of a limitation to how much you can grow, because there's physics limitations. But tech is not one of them. And the fact that it's already become the third largest export industry for New Zealand, and I think it will overtake tourism in a few years. And there's no doubt in my mind that this is our ticket to ensuring that we can afford the future that we all want in New Zealand. So one of the big reasons why my wife and I came back to New Zealand is to do what we can to really accelerate and make the future happen faster. And
that's fantastic.
And we've had so much fun. And what a great place it is to raise our kids. But not only that, it really did not feel like a trade-off for us at all. In that, we're not only are we doing interesting work here, but we're also hopefully helping companies to be successful to then plug back into the local community that we love.
All right, well, we're out of time, so thank you very much, Bowen Pam, for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, appreciate it. Look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
All right, cheers. I trust you enjoyed hearing from Bowen Pan in this episode. Of course, the New Zealand Business Podcast is brought to you by One New Zealand and Gorilla Technology. Be sure to listen in to our other episodes featuring many of New Zealand's most successful leaders, including founders such as the newly knighted Sir Rod Drury of Xero, Cecilia and James Robinson of My Food Bag, Sir Peter Beck of Rocket Lab, Brooke Roberts of Sharesies, Sir Michael Hill, and many more. And because a rising tide lifts all boats, be sure to contribute to lifting New Zealand's success by sharing a favourite New Zealand Business Podcast episode with a friend. Thanks for listening in. This is Paul Spain signing out. I'll catch you on the next episode. Oh, and quickly before I go, if you haven't already, grab your cyber risk reduction review. Normally $250, but free for a limited number of New Zealand Business Podcast listeners this month. It's a fast way to get a personalised plan to lower your cyber risk. Just hit the link in the show notes to book your session.
The New Zealand Business Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, your strategic and proactive IT partner.